Hello everyone, we're going to do another lore tour today since I'm leveling my Machinist and thought it might be a fun way to, curb the monotony of running this dungeon over and over again. So we will be in the Aery. Context for anyone who needs a refresher, this is the big, dark, cloud-covered thing floating above the churning mists. The lair of Nidhogg, whom we have come with Estinian to kill, but we got separated, and while he's up top there hugging the floor, we've got to fight our way through to him. I should turn the music on while I'm thinking of it. Hang on. There we go, that's better. Love the music in here. While I'm thinking of it, I'm sorry, but this Lightning 13... I'm sorry, that's going straight... I do actually have a list of worse names that I see in this game, and most of them are Squall, or Cloud, or Sephiroth, or Lightning, and this is going right on there. It's just a real pet peeve of mine. I don't know why. I feel like it's not difficult to come up with a slightly more creative and personal name than that. Anyway, of course, the first enemy we encounter, Duran Songar, I can't really say all that much about it. So it's obviously in the Dravanian tongue, of which we know almost nothing. However, there are other mobs here with Songar in their name, so we might guess that there's some kind of taxonomic relationship there. I guess we can draw some implications from their common features. I guess we'll come to that soon. And we also have an Aery wyvern. Well, I guess it might be useful to give a precise definition of Aery. It's basically the name for a nest of a bird of prey, such as a falcon or a hawk, often on the edge of a face of a cliff. But as an adjective, it also means kind of light and ethereal, lacking form or substance. I think both of those meanings inform exactly what this place is in ways that are pretty clear. As for wyvern, well, we see throughout Heavensward that a bunch of different names that are basically synonymous with dragon are used, but they're also slightly different in their etymology. So I'll handle each of these as we go. The term wyvern is, I believe, British in origin. It starts to appear in Middle English. So it's a dragon that has 2 legs as opposed to the more common 4 of a larger dragon. It tends to be much smaller, less intelligent. Now the biased is pretty much the Irish word for beast. Is often depicted in folklore as a giant lake-dwelling serpent. So that's why we see them often as wingless dragons. And our tank's already gone down. I don't know whose fault that was because I wasn't paying attention, but it definitely wasn't mine. Card chaser, alright, that one's easy. So Machinist thoughts, I guess, is I don't know, people have been asking me about this since I said that I was leveling it. I enjoy it. I'm a big fan of Gorse Barrel. I think that's how you say it, Gorse Barrel. The stance dancing you get to do, I think that's good fun. Okay, that tank's we're just gonna wait and see how long it takes for him to realize he's going the wrong way. He's just running backwards now. Anyway, so the sheer number of cooldowns, I guess, on Machinist can feel a bit overwhelming, particularly with the opener. But I mean, I haven't really looked into it that much. I'll take time to learn all that properly when I get to 60. I'm sure it'll be fine. Quick Reload had a buff the other day, so the cooldown was brought down to 20 seconds. I don't know whether it's an optimal way to play it, but I've heard a few suggestions that you can basically use Quick Reload now as a slower meditation for the monk, referring to that. As a way to open fights, you can have, I think, up to 5 stacks of ammo going into like a raid boss or whatever. So that's pretty cool, and that's how I've been playing it. Again, don't know if it's optimal. He's figured it out. So the other thing is that there's a few skills that actually share a cooldown. So the Heavy and the Bind, they share a cooldown. So does the Stun and the Silence. So what I've been doing with that so far is basically I'm keeping one of those on my keybinds and the other just sort of, well, you can see off to the side. And I figure that if there's any particular fight that I need, say the Stun over the Silence, then I can basically just switch that into my keybinds. I don't think there'll be any fights where I'll need both of them. I mean, maybe like Savage 3 and Savage 4, but I'm not planning on doing them on Machinist anytime soon, so I don't really see any problems with it for now. But for people who are trying to keybind absolutely everything for Machinist, including those skills that share cooldowns, I can see skill bloat being a real problem for them at the moment. We were also fighting some sprites there, and I think we got another sprite coming up here. So I'm sure I've talked about sprites before, but they come from the Latin spiritus. They're used to describe basically anything from a ghost to a pixie to an elf. The Celtic spriggan has the same origin, obviously. Medieval English folklore, they generally use the term interchangeably with fairy, and the fairy in medieval English folklore far more closely resembles, I guess, the Tolkien elves, particularly the Tolkien elves of Mirkwood, than it would anything that we would describe today as a little fairy. Another thing that really interests me in this place, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, is the way that we've got these Proto-Ishgardian ruins. I'm assuming they're Proto-Ishgardian, and they're being swallowed by all these tendrils of corrupted ether. So the most notable other place that we see this happening is basically places that have been exposed to the destruction of Dalamud and of Bahamut. So it's something that seems to happen to matter when it's exposed to a really big, powerful explosion of ether. So my theory, which I think is pretty sound for the moment, is basically that we're seeing everywhere here the imprint of that moment of conception for Nidhogg's madness when he first learned of Ratatoska's murder and quite literally blew up. Why it all seems to be lightning aspect, I don't know whether that has something to do with Nidhogg or whether it has something to do with, I guess, the atmospheric ether this high up. Anyway, so we're fighting Rungda, obviously. We're in a place at the moment called Akfalai. Ak means circle, that's all I know. We know that of the Dravanian language. So Akafar is eternal circle, Akmorn is death circle. Like I say, one of the very few Dravanian words that has been confirmed. Now, Rungda is, story time, I guess. Rungda is the queen of the Balinese Layaks, which they're pretty gross. They're humans that have been practicing black magic and cannibalism, and are subsequently transformed into demons. So during the day they're just normal kind of people, but at night their head pops off and their entrails sort of trail behind and they go around eating babies and stuff like that. Obviously you can see the ad here, Layak is referring to that. Now Rungda is their queen, and the eternal struggle of good and evil in Balinese culture is represented as a battle between Barong, the king of the good spirits, and Rungda, queen of the Layaks. She's often associated with Kali from Hindu myth, since Bali's mythology is derived from its Hindu origins. She's got gross claws and fangs. She causes plague, almost exclusively eats babies. You've probably seen Balinese depictions of her because she's central to a lot of dances and ceremonies and stuff like that in their culture. So if I can find a decent image, I'll put one up here somewhere if I can remember. That attack there, electric... I'm going to say this wrong. Electric cachexia? Cachexia? I think it's cachexia. So that's an interesting word. Cachexia is basically the kind of muscle atrophy, weight loss, escalating weakness you see for non-dietary reasons in people with autoimmune diseases or AIDS, multiple sclerosis, cancer, dementia, etc. So it's pretty awful. Pretty much everything in this place is just really awful. Anyway, Rungda's about to drop dead, and I'll go back to my previous train of thought, just with all this ether and the way that Nidhogg is really kind of a tragic figure in this story, if you know what I mean. So one thing I'm really interested in is whatever this place is, whatever this place was before the beginning of the Dragon Song War. It was clearly built by the cooperation of the Elezen and Dragon together. So you can understand that represents to Nidhogg everything sort of loathsome and horrible about that betrayal. And this might be an interesting question to discuss here, actually. Do you pity Nidhogg as a character and what he's been through, and do you kind of sympathize with what he's doing? If so, why? If not, why not? Leave a comment. Now, one thing that kind of interests me here, we've got these eggs. And obviously they're dragon eggs, but they seem to be a lot bigger than the dragons that are actually coming out of them, which is kind of weird. And, I mean, what is this web? Because we don't see any Diomites in here or anything like this. Is this Diomite web, or the way I see this, it's kind of like you know, beeswax. I think I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that beeswax is essentially just saliva of bees. So is this something similar going on here? Is this the dragons kind of making nests out of their saliva? Anyway, so, alright, here we go. We've got the Ned Songar. Now, we know that these things are basically the result of Ishgardians that have partaken of dragon blood, and as a result of the little bit of Ratatoska that's still mingled with their essence from their ancestors eating her eyes, transforms them into dragons. So the implication might be that they're of a similar rank to, what was the other Songar before? What was it? Dran Songar, I think. So it could be that they're a similar rank, but they're of Ishgardian origin rather than natural draconic origin. Although that said, the Avis, I think they're normally called Avis, the Dran Songar, when you see them as like mobs in the world. I'm pretty sure that that we've seen Ishgardians transforming into them as well. So it might be that Songar is a designation of these former Ishgardian dragon things, and what was it? Ned and Sorn, Ned and Dran are different classifications or different instances of those. So we've got drakes here. So drake is from the Old English andraka, which literally means duck king. So we now call male ducks drakes. But Old English also uses the term draka to refer to a dragon or serpent. In fantasy literature, drakes are usually smaller and unintelligent. Dragon king, kind of like wyvern, I guess. Final Fantasy XIV seems to use drake and biased interchangeably, which I think is interesting. I think I talked about this during the Keeper of the Lake, but what's interesting, and you may or may not know, is that all dragons on Hydaelyn are actually descended directly from Midgardsormr, and their size and their power seems to scale with their age and their proximity in generation to the first brood. So we know that their eyes are this kind of natural ethereal battery, which raises the question of whether the effect they have on the land from absorbing ether is really all that different from a primal. My guess would be that it's something to do with the rate and the quantity of ether they consume, or maybe rather than actually absorbing ether, they constitute some kind of, I don't know, some kind of quantum engine that just produces ether from nothing. That's a pretty crazy thought, that their eyes might be some sort of self-moving, self-causing thing. But I mean, Midgardsormr, he's some kind of immortal deep space dragon, so it's really not all that inconceivable. Now this is interesting, we're specifying here that these are Nidhogg broodlings, which makes me think that they might be actually children of Nidhogg and Tioman, and might also explain why we've got these newborn dragons that appear to be as powerful as some of the older ones around here, again, because it's on one hand about the age of the dragon, and on the other hand it seems about having that proximity to the first brood, is that I guess the kind of blood of Midgardsormr becomes more and more and more and more diluted the further down it goes, until you get things like drakes. So while I'm thinking of it, another thing that I was planning on doing recently, because I've been doing some slightly different, I guess, more experimental things with the channel recently. I've been playing a bit of Steel Rock at the moment, and I know Rewind's been playing a lot more of it than I have. I was planning on doing some recording with her, just talking about the state of PvP at the moment and how we're enjoying it, maybe talking a bit of strategy. So that's something you can expect to see over the next week or two, I suppose. That might be interesting. So I guess let me know what you think of that. Let me know whether you've been getting into the PvP. Let me know if you have any questions about... I've been playing Ninja mostly and a little bit of Dragoon. I'm really interested to see how Machinist plays in PvP, actually. It looks like fun. I used to have a lot of fun with Bard in PvP, so we'll get to that. Anyway, so we have... The guy Ascatus is hilarious. This is one of my favorite mob names I've encountered so far in the game. So the guy Ascatus is from American folklore. It started appearing during the 19th century. And it's basically some kind of mammalian beast that has legs on one side of its body significantly shorter than on the other sides, because basically they live on hillsides and they just walk around the hillside in one direction for their whole life. I don't really know precisely what the origin is. I don't think anyone really knows, but it was kind of I think it was like a running joke in American sort of journals and newspapers and stuff like that in the 19th century, referring back to this tradition of British explorers in the kind of early days of British colonialism were coming back from the New World with these ridiculous stories of centaurs and of how they'd been like fellatiated by a mermaid or whatever. And they were actually getting published in scientific journals in London, and people were believing just these ridiculous tales that they were telling. So I think the guy Ascatus was a kind of tongue-in-cheek reference back to that. But there are a few accounts back then of how people would hunt them, and basically it was a two-man job, and you'd have to have one person standing uphill from the guy Ascatus and sort of giving him a push, and another person at the bottom of the hill waiting with a sack when they rolled down and they could wrap them up. It kind of gets me thinking of, I don't know, other ways you might hunt these things. Maybe you could like put a bear trap in its path and face it with this conundrum of, you know, is it going to keep going and walk into the bear trap and die, or is it going to just stop and stay where it is until it starves to death after a couple of weeks? And the other thing, so they can be born either left-sided or right-sided. So the legs can be shorter either on the left side or the right side. And apparently a right-sided mother can give birth to a left-sided child, which makes you think that they just kind of be screwed because the mother wouldn't be able to fare for them. They'd have to travel in opposite directions. It sort of makes me wonder if you had like a narrow mountain pass or something like that, and you had a right-sided and a left-sided guy Ascatus coming at each other, what happens there? Because they can't go back. What are they going to be forced to fight to the death to see which one can proceed? I don't know. There's just a whole lot of it's just really silly. It's just a really silly thing and really funny for some reason. I'd love to hear some guy Ascatus hunting theories if you'd like to tweet me something like that. So going back to PvP, I guess, those of you who don't know Lady Rewind, she's my white mage for my group, and I stream with her. Well, she streams with me, I don't stream. You guys know why I don't stream. She is on the NBN, she does stream. But she's pretty good at PvP. I think she's playing a lot of Astro in PvP as well. So we might be able to talk a bit about how Astro looks in the whole PvP scene, because they seem to be kind of overpowered in Seal Rock at the moment. Anyway, that might be a fun thing to do. I want to get the, what is it, the Field Commander's coat? I think you need like 100 wins in Seals Rock or something like that, which is just insane. I never got the ADS mount. I don't think I even got the Warhorse, to be honest. But I really, really want that that coat. That looks awesome. So I'm going to push for that, and I may as well be recording it while I go. So if you guys want to see some PvP, then yeah, we're going to be doing that. So we've got more Ned Songar. You know, I really think that that Songar is going to be referring to them originally being human. Because I mean, the most compelling thing to me about this whole Dragon Song War is the way that Nidhogg's strategy is that he's not really wasting the lives of any of his own. Most of the dragons that he's mobilizing against Ishgard are actually converted heretics. So he's destroying Ishgard with its own people. But again, he's not even destroying Ishgard, is he? I mean, his whole idea is that he's continuing this eternal revenge. I don't think there's any loot in here that I need anymore. Now, coming up here on the right, I want you to pay close attention. Those are Allagan ruins. There's nothing else they can be, and there's some more just up ahead. Yeah, up there. They're very, very clearly Allagan. Now, the Aery was built. If the Aery is from this proto Ishgard or this pre-Dragon Song War Ishgard, whatever you want to call it, it's the Allagan ruins have to be much older, right? So how on earth did Allagan ruins get up here? Is this a bit of Dalamud that sort of struck here on its way down during the Calamity? I don't know. I don't know if anyone's even noticed this, but this to me is one of the great mysteries at the moment. And I have absolutely no theories whatsoever. If anyone has any theories, I'd love to hear them. I mean, it might even be something as simple as the dragons were using bits of Allagan stuff to build their nests. I don't think it's going to be something that simple, but I mean, it could be. Who knows? It just seems that we can't get away from them, though, does it? These Allagans. I mean, I'm really hoping that the Void Ark isn't Allagan, but I mean, well, it's like that Ancient Aliens meme that keeps getting around with the Ancient Aliens guy just saying Allagans. Now these are another thing that's really bothered. Well, firstly, Voivre. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's basically just the French and I think a slightly older word for wyvern. So again, it generally refers to a smaller dragon with 2 legs, generally less powerful, less intelligent than worm. Yeah, so these eggs in the background, they've got portals in them and they look a lot like void portals. And that really bothers me for some reason. So I suspect that this might be how dragon eggs work and that we're literally just killing newborn dragons here, and that's kind of disturbing. But I mean, it makes sense that that there's inside the egg of a dragon, there's just kind of this ethereal convergence that just spits out dragons. The alternative might be that that they are portals of some sort and they're being used from somewhere else in Dravania, and that Nidhogg is just sort of calling forth his minions. But that's another really... That's something that I want to learn about, and that's something that if anyone gets the chance to ask Koji Fox in a live letter or something like that, I guess the sort of life cycle of dragons, because you don't know that much. I mean, we know that we know that Midgardsormr seemed to come. He came with the eggs, didn't he, to Hydaelyn? He had the eggs of his children. He didn't just create them out of nothing, or maybe he did. I don't know. So here's Estinian. He's been doing absolutely nothing. He has not done a single percentage of damage to Nidhogg. And it comes down to us once again. So, I've definitely talked about Nidhogg elsewhere, but I don't really remember. It's probably State of the Realm, actually. So, the Old Norse understanding of the universe was centered around Yggdrasil, more commonly known as the World Tree, and that's a motif with which most people are fairly familiar. So our world rests above one of the tree's roots, the high branches and canopies of the heavens, and amongst and beneath the roots in the ground are the various hells. So the deepest hell is where Nidhogg resides, and he chews on the roots of Yggdrasil, and he eats the corpses of various sinners and oath breakers, and basically all the worst kinds of people. So that's his first function. In relation to the other dragons, fun fact I suppose, so Hraesvelgr is named for an eagle that roosts on the very highest point of Yggdrasil, and the squirrel Ratatoska, which is the name for their sister in Dravania, whom was murdered by Thordan and his knights. So Ratatoska is this little squirrel that constantly carries messages between Hraesvelgr and Nidhogg. So Nidhogg's name properly in Old Norse is Nidhöggr. Högr basically means striker, and Nit, although it's not made clear in the Poetic Edda, the popular translation pulled from later material is effectively night or dark. So Nidhogg becomes either striker in the dark or a strike from the dark, which is pretty, I don't know, it's a real sort of interesting, loaded way to describe a dragon. I like it. I'm a big fan of it. Not mentioned anywhere, but in the Edda as well. So Nidhogg, he's this real central figure, but he's only mentioned in this one text. But anyway, in this text, his flight from this deepest hell, I think it's called Nidafjord, it heralds the beginning of Ragnarok. And he sort of comes forth from his realm with the corpses of men sort of showering down off his wings as he flies across the land. Liege Tale. So I assume that this is referring to the way that Nidhogg is the sovereign. He's their liege. But it also might refer to the fact that these are sort of lieges among their classes of dragons. They're sort of the kings of their respective classes. Ale, this is a difficult one. I assume that's a Dravanian word. All I can really think of this is Ale-Hach is a Kurdish and Iranian monotheism. And Ale is also a Belarusian derivative of the name Oleg, which is itself a derivative of the Old Norse Helgi. And Helgi Hunsingbane, I think? Hunsingbane? Anyway, it was the name of a British king. He's the bane of that. It's another hero from the Poetic Edda, so you've got that kind of tentative connection to Nidhogg through the Poetic Edda, which is really best I can do. As for that other dragon that we just killed, his name, it's a Dravanian word. I've got absolutely nothing on that. If any of you have any idea, then go ahead. Another thing with Nidhogg, is he going to cast it again before we kill him? Yeah, he's going to cast it on me here. So the Sable Price. Now, a sable is a kind of weasel. But that's not what we're looking at here. So more importantly, it's the kind of black clothing that you wear in mourning or to a funeral. So the price for Nidhogg's despair is, it's really the truth, the kind of nugget of the whole Dragon Song War. And this ability is obviously named for that. And then we have the Scarlet Price, because sable is also a synonym for black. So the Scarlet Price continues that theme. Anyway, Nidhogg is dead. Estinian steals our kill once again, but that is the Aery. That is another lore to her. Once again, scattered as all hell, but I hope that doesn't really bother you. Like I say, no loot that I need in here. I suppose I should do another couple of these before, before the 3.1 dungeons. What haven't I done? I don't know if I've done the Dusk Vigil yet, so I might do that because that's a fairly interesting one. Anyway, whatever it is, and whatever video you see next, whether it's probably be the Armoire or some more Type 0 if you're enjoying that, then that's awesome. And if you haven't seen my Type 0 series yet, then check that out if you're interested. Anyway, I'm rattling, as I always rattle at the end of my lore tours. It seems a tradition here. I'll see you next time. Bye!